broke out two things that you said that race hinges on. The statistics of race hinge on those who seek to prove that systemic racism exists and those who seek to prove that it doesn't. Use the exact same pot of data. Well, we must understand that race was created for two primary reasons. It continues today, I think, in part for what you stated, but it was created for two primary reasons: for political gain and economic gain. And this is still one of the greatest values of the racial system today. You hear politicians on the left, far left, and the right and far right, the same, using race to their political advantage. The political left will say that America is systemically racist and that we can use this data to show that vote for me and I'll remove this stain from society. And the political right says, no, race is not a problem. And I can show you the data, like you said earlier, to lean to that. Well, one of the greatest challenges and the greatest barriers that are in front of people is because politics in America are very similar to race in America, in that people choose their tribes and they hold to their paradigms, and they're not as willing to consider a viewpoint that is on the other side of their tribal philosophy. And so this idea of looking at people as a unique person, as a unique human being, outside of the strata of melanin classifications, it tends to have a political leaning to it. And even though I have never taken a political stance through the pull movement, there are those who reject the idea simply because it doesn't sound like their tribal leaders, their political tribal leaders. And in that, people stick their heels in the ground, and they believe that if a person is proposing an idea that is not consistent with their political tribe, they would feel ostracized if they even adhere to it. And so they don't. And so the same is true with race. If a person feels like, and if you go back a few decades, a person who would have had a lighter shade of skin, take someone with a light ivory colored skin, a woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, she may have fallen in love with this man with dark brown skin and froey curls because her tribe, her race, her tribe, her group would have shunned her for it. She would have been very reluctant to take this man home to daddy. And so the same is true with any idea. When people see or hear an idea that is estranged from their group, their race, their class, their political tribe, they're often rejecting of it because of the fear of being ostracized from that group. And that is why I set my stake in the ground and preach that we're all unique individual human beings. And sometimes we just have to see ourselves, not others. We have to see ourselves first outside of the spectrum of ultimate collectivism and seeing every part of our lives through a group. So some of the greatest challenges that I get is through the political element. The second part being the economic element. There is just too much money. And I'm writing a piece right now in my daily blog about the money associated with racial classifications in America. There's just too much money involved. I had this conversation with a very close friend of mine. I made the statement several years ago that I don't teach my sons that they are Black, although I'm clearly aware that there are a lot of people in society who may lay these labels upon them and tell them, hey, you are Black. I don't care what you say. This is how society sees you. Well, I reject that philosophy because I don't believe in Black or white. I know that there are millions, if not hundreds of millions of people who do.
Right. I mean, like, can't you just like say that, which is like reality, like there are tons of people out there who believe this about you. Like, I mean, it doesn't mean it's who you are, but it does matter. Like, like we can't, I mean, I feel like sometimes these conversations, it matters a lot that there's millions of people out there who look at you like that. It matters quite a lot. And so I think it's important, yes, to make sure that people are clear, especially youth, that they're not actually black. Like it's meaningless. Um, but but it's that fine line, right? It's a meaningless classification that has a meaningful impact on your life. So I think that we do need to teach people both things, and that's critically important. Otherwise, you end up like me, running into a brick wall over and over, and not understanding really what's going on.
Yeah, I think I said before I started this interview that I would find as many areas of common ground and try to avoid disagreeing. And that's one of the foundational points of my belief system, is that there's no good that comes from ingraining someone else's philosophy into my children, right? It doesn't build up my children by teaching them how someone else sees the world. I give them a worldview.
Okay, wait. Let's talk about that statement.
Okay.
It absolutely does. Okay, because it's talking to you're not talking about the philosophy so that they can take it on. You're just talking to them about it so that they know it exists. It's just education, just no different than you educate people about finance. I don't see why you're making some kind of distinction about it. It's still something that exists. It's something that's out there. It's something that's going to have an impact on their life. It's something if they know about, then it'll be helpful for them. So what's the problem with it?
Yeah, the problem is that it doesn't stop. It is the endless perpetual cycle that's been traveling for hundreds of years. It cannot end as long as people continue to perpetuate the idea itself. And so as we live in a society,
and you should teach your children that as well. What's the problem?
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I begin. I have my two boys. One's almost 13 and one's 4 years old. Well, the 4-year-old, he's completely clueless to life. He plays with anyone he finds, and he doesn't meet a stranger. He's a doll in his own right. My oldest son is almost similarly very, very friendly. He makes friends everywhere. He doesn't distinguish between physical characteristics at all. And part of that is because of the environment in which he's grown up in his short life. He's been surrounded by people of all different backgrounds, different economic backgrounds, different social classifications, different skin shades, different languages, different foods. He's traveled to over 30 different states in America. He's traveled internationally. And so he's just seen a lot of the world, and I say a lot of the world, but a lot of different places and people. And so he's subconsciously already learned that grouping people or describing people or defining people based off of physical appearances is asinine. So I don't need to teach him that other people will make this error, that other people will make this mistake.
Why not? Why don't you need to teach him that?
Because he will learn what to do and how to think, and then by empowering him with this mindset, he will be able to overcome or educate other people who think erroneously. Not so much to just remove every element of society that is real. What is real is that hundreds of millions of people in America believe in the concept of race, believe that when they look at someone with dark brown skin, that they are Black. They have been subconsciously trained to see that this dark brown skin has other connotations associated with it, whether that's cultural, whether that's heritage, whether that's educational, whether that's language. There are all of these things that are associated with dark brown skin, and there's all of these other things that are associated with light ivory colored skins. And so I don't spend a lot of time teaching my son that's how other people think. What I have done is spent a lot of time telling him that that's absolutely ridiculous, that these things do not hinge, these factors tell you nothing about a person. And so this is not a long, deep conversation for someone who is young. It's well understood when it's understood. And then you begin to treat people like they're unique individuals, unique human beings, opening the door to conversation with people, not just because they look different than you, just because they are different than you. They are a unique, different person. There's only one you, there's only one me. So every person I encounter them as a unique person. And I'm teaching my sons that. And it's totally unnecessary. And it takes up brain space to spend time you know, permeating their mind with the idea that someone else is going to see them and have a different worldview than they do. And especially when it's not so true all around the world. The rest of the world, not the rest of the entire world, but there's so many places around the world that do not hold these racialized views that we do in America. And so I think it's not as great of importance to teach my son the error of other people's ways and the way that they think. I spend a lot of time teaching him how to think positively, how to think powerfully, how to overcome obstacles, how to address situations that may occur. And I think that's part of the problem with race in America, is that there's this subset of beliefs that here's what a person who has dark brown skin must teach their child. They must teach them to put their hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2 when they're pulled over by the police officer. They must understand that they're going to be followed by the store clerk at Macy's. They must understand that they will be overlooked for every promotion because of the color of their skin. And what happens is, by indoctrinating, because it is that, by indoctrinating children with this philosophy, it becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy that when we teach people to expect these things, they subconsciously create these things. And it doesn't mean that these things don't exist in society. What it does mean is, if we seek to end this merry-go-round that has existed for hundreds of years, somebody has to educate that it was a lie in the first place. And that's where I spend my time. I spend my time teaching my sons that this is a lie.
Yeah, I don't hear in that an explanation for why you shouldn't teach them the other stuff. In fact, I hear you literally saying that you do teach them. So like you do, if you teach them how to deal with certain situations, the certain situations are situations where they might experience the results of millions of people believing those faulty things. I'm guessing.
Yeah, that was the thing. That was the part where I don't actually teach my sons that. I don't teach my sons to expect that. What I'm saying is that that's what society.
I'm not saying to expect it, but you did say in your statement just then that you do teach them. This was before you were talking about that. You said you teach them how to deal with certain situations. What did you mean by that then?
Yeah, I teach them how to overcome obstacles in general, because this is the reality of life. I teach my sons how to deal with any interaction that is going to create friction, how to handle any interaction where they are going to deal with rejection. My oldest son, he tried out for the basketball team when he was in the 6th grade, and he didn't make the team. And in his mind, he just knew that he was going to make the team. And he was heartbroken when he came home. This kid had tears in his eyes. And I sat him down and I said to him, son, if you want to make the team, you have to put in the work. You have to spend more time with that ball in your hand, and you have to be outside on the rainy nights. And we've spent a lot of time getting him to the skill set and the level that he needs to make the team. Well, if he never makes the team in his life, I will never teach him that that was someone else's oversight of him. I will always teach him that here's how you overcome that. Keep putting in the work until you are so excellent that those who deny you because of your excellence are made to look like absolute fools. And this is what all those who are etched in history have done. You know, my office, you can't see it, but there are pictures of Hank Aaron and Jackie Robinson. And these men, they were absolutely excellent. And that's what they did, despite every single barrier that was in front of them. Not to say that they were few or even comparable to my own. What I'm saying is that they exhibited a level of excellence that if they were perpetually denied, their deniers would have been made to look like fools.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people who would deny them have no shame. And so them looking like fools is not really material. But yeah, like that's the kind of thing I'm teaching about. Like I wouldn't teach someone that because there are people out there who have no shame. They're out there. They're publicly out there having no shame.
What do we do? What do we do about them, Will? What do we do about those people? The people, the deniers who have no shame, the people who don't actually care, the people who will reject you because of whatever arbitrary reason. What do we do about that person?
I think that those people need to be removed from a position of power over others.
And then And then what? So we
That's
get
it.
that person out of power, and but then who takes their spot?
Someone, hopefully, who does not have those same beliefs. That's the goal.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, Will. We all have our biases. And so what we're doing in society today, when I talked about that totem pole, is what we're doing today, and this is very clear for those who've studied it or who are observing it as you are right now, is that there is an advocacy for removing those from power who have these biases and replacing them with people who have another set of bias.
Yeah,
and so
I'm that's not what I said, right? And number one, and then number two.
No, it isn't, but it is the subconscious. This is the inevitable. You can't have someone who has no bias. Everyone has a bias.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, I don't know how we got on this subject, but like, yes, everyone has bias. No one's going to get in a position of power who has no bias. However, there are people who actually care about objectivity and about recognizing people as individual humans. And then there are people who do not care about that. And so that's a distinction that I think is important, the one that I'm actually really talking about. There are people in power right now who, like you said, they're willing to manipulate a hierarchy of race in order to achieve their goals. And this is happening before our very eyes. It's happening right now. And so, you said, what should we do about those people? I'm saying we should remove them from power so that they can't do that, because there are going to be people out there, regardless of their biases, who will be in that position and who will make a definitive choice not to do that. Those people are out there. They exist. They're not like a myth.
No, they're not.
And so, I think that is the goal. I'm not saying someone without bias. I'm saying someone who will choose not to perpetuate the system that you're trying to dismantle. Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support, and see you next time.